Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video I have something really interesting. It's white to play and mate in 203 moves. Now if you try and solve it, you'll probably rip your own hair out in disgust, so I'll advise you not to take a look at it and just take a look at the solution right now. So the solution starts with the move Queen G1 check, and after King F3, Queen F1, King G4, Queen E2, Rook F3. This is all forced, by the way. Queen E6, Rook F5. Here is the important move that white has to find. That is the move Bishop H2. And after Bishop H2, black cannot proceed to push his H pawn any further. And this is extremely important because now any attempt by black except one ends the game very quickly. So if black plays knight 6 E7, knight E5 is just checkmate. What about knight 8 E7? It's playable, but after Queen E2, Rook F3, Queen E4 check, Rook F4, Knight F6, this is also checkmate. That means that you have really one more attempt which you should take a look at. Knight F6, Knight takes F6, King F3, Queen E3 check, King G2, Queen G1, King F3, Queen F1, this is checkmate as well. So black has to move his king, or he can move the pawns, but we're going to look at that a bit later. It will just transpose. So King F3. And now imagine you can get your king to D1 in this position. If your king is on D1, all of a sudden you have Queen E2 checkmate. This is extremely important because this is the entire concept of this puzzle. How is white going to get this position? See right now. Queen E3 check, King G2. So we go on the exact same checking maneuver. But what's the idea? The idea is that now we reach the exact same position, but previously in this position white was the one who had played his bishop and put it on H2. However, now black is the one who has played Rook F5, which means that now it is white to move. And with this move, white puts his king on B2, and he's just going to walk with his king to D1 and play Queen E2 checkmate. But it isn't that simple. If we look at the best defense for black, which is King F3, and we again go on this exact same long check maneuver, all again, play King C1, black does the same thing again. This is very repetitive, as you're going to see. And now we go King D1. And now if black is not careful and ends up playing, let's say, King F3, Queen E2 is checkmate. So black needs to start moving his pawns, because moving the knights, as we have seen, leads to checkmate as well. So he moves his pawn to A4. And this is another very critical moment. We cannot play something like King E1 because all of a sudden our king will be too far away from this A pawn, which is going to queen. It is true that when this pawn reaches A2, we have Queen A2. But as soon as we play Queen A2, the knights can get activated and black's material advantage will start to show. So it's important that we stay in touch with the A pawn and prevent it from queening and play King C1. And after King C1, again black can move his pawns, but that just makes life easier for white. So instead black is going to have to play King F3, Queen E3, and again, all over again, this check maneuver happens. And now King to D1. Again, if you go King F3 now, it's just checkmate on E2. So you don't want to do that. Instead you play A5. Again, if you play A3, it makes things easier for white. So we're going to look at that, but a little later, as once we have prolonged it a bit more. We go King C1 again, forcing the same old maneuver of checks, King D1, and now black plays A6. Again, we're just postponing A3 for as long as possible with black to make this as long as possible. So again, the same check maneuvers, and now king back to D1. And finally, you don't have any more A6, A5, you have to play A3. Again, you can play C5, C4, but that's just going to transpose, as you're going to see. So A3 is what we're looking at. And now King C1. I would just like to mention that we can never think, you might think we can just walk up with the king, pick up this pawn. But whenever we pick up this pawn, what happens is he goes King F3, and suddenly the rook checks our king. So we need to be careful, and we can only capture the pawn when it reaches the third rank, which it does now. And now we can go after the pawn. Again, if the king tries to escape, we just go on the same check maneuver all over again, King B1, and the same thing repeats itself once again. It will repeat itself quite a lot in this puzzle. King A2, we do this once again, all over again. finally we are able to pick up the pawn. Now we've done the first part. The next part is to come all the way back with the king to d1. Oops, wrong arrow. All the way to d1, and then again repeat this again. There is still a bit of trickery left, but that's the basic concept of this. So this again repeats itself, the same checks all over again. We bring our king all the way back to d1 with the same checks, all the way back with our king to d1, and finally we get it to d1, and again king f3, queen e2 is checkmate. So black has to move his pawns. He plays a4, and we come back to c1, and again all over again the same check maneuver repeats itself. It's getting a bit repetitive, but it's extremely important. Again king d1, and this happens all over again. I'm showing you the best defense, which is why black played a6, a5. If you played something like a3 instead, it would have been much quicker for us. So king d1, again if king f3, it's mate on e2, and now black plays c4. If you play something like a3, that is only going to make it easier for us. So we're going to look at the best move again, c4, king c1, the same thing all over again. But now there's a bit of trickery. Queen f1, and now we have to be a bit careful. Here, black can try king e4. Why? Previously, if you remember, we had a checkmate, oops, not there, with queen d3. However, now with the pawn on c4, we don't have that. But what we do have is d3 check. And now once you play king e3, it's mate with queen takes f2. And if you don't do this, if you go king d5, you play queen f5, knight e5, queen takes e5. This is also checkmate, which means that you cannot go to e4 if you want to play for the entire 203 moves, and you have to play king g4. The game continues with the same check pattern, king d1, and now again if black is to play the best defense, this is move number 102 by the way, c5, we go back to c1, and the same thing repeats itself all over again. And now I'd just like to mention something here actually. After king e4, it seems like black might just get to c6 because he's just played c6, c5. But after d3 check again, king d5, queen f5, king c6, queen e6, king b7, queen b6, king c8, queen c7. This is checkmate. If any of you did try to solve this, I'm pretty sure you didn't calculate all of it. Let me know if in the comments below if you managed to do it, but I really doubt you did. Anyways, black has to play king g4, check again, rook f3, queen e6, rook f5, and king d1. Now why have I drawn this arrow? It's extremely important. You might think that now that the rook does not directly attack the a4 square, we can just go ahead with our king and pick up the a4 pawn. However, after king b2, it does not work. King f3, you might think we can do all this all over again and now go after the a4 pawn, but this won't work simply because of a very nice resource that black will have in the end of it all in this position, which is king e4, and now nothing works. For example, if we were to play d3, then king e3 is enough because you have the d2 square now to save you from getting checkmated. And black plays king e4, and if we take on c4, the problem is king f3, and our queen is pinned by the rook on h4, which is exactly why we again have to come back to d1 with the concept that if king f3, we are threatening mate with queen e2. So instead you have to play a3, and we do the same thing all over again. It's pretty obvious now what's happening, but there's still a little bit of a trick here. Black plays king e4 just to postpone it a bit more so that after queen c4 he can go back to f3, queen f1, king g4. So it took 2 extra moves, which is how we get to 203, and this happens all over again. King a2, king f3, queen e3, king g2, queen g1, king f3, queen f1, king g4, the same check maneuver, and now we pick up on a3. He could have played c4 a little earlier, but it doesn't matter, it'll just transpose king f3, same check maneuvers, and with these checks we get our way back to the d1 square, as you're going to see, and after that we'll once again be threatening a checkmate with our queen on e2. So this is extremely important. Now we get to d1. If king f3 is going to be mate on e2, so you have to play a4, and now we come back to with the king on c1, and the exact same idea. We just want to keep picking up the pawns as long as we can. King d1 again, threatening if king f3, queen e2, checkmate. So we do this again, all over again. It gets very repetitive, but it's 203 moves long, and it's still not done. There's still a tad bit of trickery at the end with which black can postpone it, rather not avoid the mate, but postpone the mate a bit more. After these checks all over again, and we pick up the pawn on the a3 square, black has one last way to make it 203 moves. So now after these checks, we just now have to walk back with the king, and things will be much simpler. We do this, and now for the final time we'll execute our check maneuvers, which is queen e3 check, king g2, queen g1, all over again, queen e2, rook f3, queen e6, rook f5. And now let me tell you something funny. This is move 200, and leeches can only take in 200 moves. So yeah, the puzzle is so long that even leeches cannot take the entire puzzle in at once, which is why I'm using the second analysis board. In this position, the move is king d1, obviously, and now if king f3, it's mate with queen e2, so you have to play knight 8 e7. This is the longest way to take the position to 203 moves. Knight f6 check, king f3, and queen e2, and it is officially 203 moves, and black is in checkmate. So a very pretty way of mating your opponent in 203 moves. It's really interesting how the same check maneuvers keep coming up. It's a really pretty puzzle. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe this video. Stay tuned for more chess. There are other videos you can check above me, and probably on this side or that side, somewhere across the screen you'll see other videos of mine. Check them out. I'll see you soon for more chess.